Hey everybody, it's Raphael from xxRafael Productions, and this is going to be about the Flash TV show and specifically the episodes that are considered by many as the best. Even though the Flash has its low points and high points, there are a lot of episodes that can be considered amazing as a standalone, alright? So what I want to do is kind of show you a list of those episodes in this video, and I'll be first showing you the top 5 that I've picked. In no particular order, alright? So, with no time to waste, let's get to the first episode, and that is Enter Flash Time, Season 4, Episode 15. Now, this episode, wow, this is definitely one of the most memorable episodes of Season 4, and also easily the most well-directed episode of the entire season. Now, interestingly though, this is actually a filler episode and has no connection in regards to the main plot, which was about DeVoe, the Thinker. Here, Barry has to try to stop a nuclear bomb from detonating and destroying all of Central City. Now, this plot is pretty simple, and however, they actually made some really good decisions for this episode, and this mission actually pushed Barry to his absolute limit. And this is further emphasized with the amazing camera angles, special effects, and especially the music. Now, I cannot actually play the music though due to possible copyright issues, but I can just say that once you watch the actual episode, you will know what I mean. One of the biggest challenges to writing a season, like just in regards to how Barry grows stronger with each passing season, in each passing threat, it becomes harder to write a season where there's an actual credible threat that Barry won't be able to easily defeat. Now, a great way to do this though, if you don't want to make things feel stretched out, is to simply put in some obstacles or threats that aren't not directly connected to the main plot or the main villain, just so that he doesn't end the season right there. Now, for once, the characters are utilized to their full potential. The lighting was absolutely stunning here, the visuals are perfect, and it was an unconventional challenge that Barry had to face to kind of break the usual formula that this show follows. Now, really, my only gripe with this episode is that Barry should be pretty much unstoppable against any villain he faces. So that's really the only problem I found with this episode. Now, that doesn't really affect my rating at all, but it affects the show in the long run, so just keep that in mind, alright? So, with this episode, that pretty much should confirm that any, villain who is not a speedster should be pretty much defeated in, less than, 3 seconds or so. I'll give it, maybe 5, alright? Just to be nice. Now, with the exception of speedster villains, now, that issue will be saved for another video, so to wrap this part up, Enter Flash Time is a great episode and definitely one of the top episodes of the series in general. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next episode, and that is none other than Season 1, Episode 15, Out of Time. Season 1 was a fantastic season from start to finish in regards to character development. Also, not just that, but the main villain was probably one of the best, like Reverse Flash, Dr. Wells, Eobard Thawne, you know who I'm talking about. The main villain, the mystery, the world building, etc. So, already, taking all that into account, plenty of the episodes are already high quality to begin with. However, this episode took it to a whole nother level. This is the episode where Barry first time traveled, and it is absolutely amazing. Before we get to the climax of this episode though, let's talk about the build-up as well, in which Cisco is already having suspicions of Dr. Wells and his connection with the Reverse Flash. All the more satisfying when we finally see Cisco figure out the truth, that Wells is indeed the Reverse Flash, and that his real name is actually Eobard Thawne, in a very intense scene that led to Cisco getting murdered by him, one of the show's most memorable moments to date. Now, Mark Martin, the meta of the week, not much to write home about him, but he was ultimately the cause for Barry's time traveling when he sent the tidal wave with the intention to annihilate Central City. Now, his main reason, Mark Martin's main reason for returning this episode was to simply get revenge on Captain Joe, no, not Captain, more like Police Joe West at the time, because Joe West doesn't become the captain until Season 5, I believe, so yeah. He gets revenge on Joe West for killing the older brother, Clyde Martin, back in Season 1. The pilot episode, Season 1, Episode 1. If you remember, Clyde Martin was the man who made the enormous tornado that Barry had to stop in the first episode. The soundtrack here, as always, continues to be splendid. Barry time traveling, Barry and Iris finally revealing their feelings, Dr. Wells, Cisco's death made for a final epic closer to this amazing episode. Definitely one of Season 1's major standouts. Alright, so next episode is also from Season 1, and that is Season 1, Episode 23, Fast Enough. Now, if Season 1 wasn't already amazing, this season finale pretty much seals the deal. Now, what can I say about this? Well, everything this season had been building up to, the Dr. Wells confrontation with Barry, the time travel moment to the very beginning where we see Nora Allen getting murdered by the Reverse Flash, the emotional moments, and then the final clash with Reverse Flash and the Flash, all paid off in a satisfying grand finale to close out this fantastic season. Also note that this episode served as a setup to the multiverse storyline, in which that massive singularity at the end Barry had to stop. This is what leads Zoom to find Earth 1 to begin with. This also sets up Season 2. This episode masterfully balanced the emotional, heartfelt moments with the action, and the pacing was perfect, nothing felt out of place, and this is a well-earned moment after 22 episodes of build-up, which created pretty much one of the best season finales I have ever seen on this show. And now let's go to a Season 2 episode, since we're talking about Season 2. Season 2 Episode 6, Enter Zoom. This episode served as Zoom's grand entrance, and boy did they deliver. In fact, as I'm recording this right now, I still remember the chills I got when I first saw this moment happen. And that is Barry being ragdolled by Zoom across Central City, humiliating the city's greatest savior. Now, this entire fight scene, I should say, propelled this moment to being one of the most memorable. This episode itself is very, very similar to Out of Time. Now, I don't mean the plot. When I say very similar, I'm referring to the structure of the episode. So, in that the first half is quite lighthearted and fun, quite humorous, but then takes a dark turn in the second half, and that was none other than the Flash vs. Zoom battle, which showcases some of the best action sequences you'd see in this show. And this is honestly something I want to talk about, because rewatching the Flash fighting Zoom and comparing that to the later seasons, where it feels like they have to write Barry looking like, for lack of a better word, they don't know how to write fight scenes, so they have to write Barry making him look like a moron or being incompetent. Now, whether that's simply because they don't know how to make the enemy a threat to Barry, which, let's be real, I mean, super speed is overpowered, so I can see why. But again, whether that is simply just because they're better at writing speedster versus speedster battles, I'm sure that's still their responsibility to make it entertaining, so that solely lies on the writers and directors. Now, this episode also brought back Linda and used her in a very hilarious way as well, and this is also in their goal to lure Zoom to Earth 1. However, obviously Zoom was a step ahead to many, as he simply attacked when they least expected it. Also, up until then, we only really heard big words about Zoom, like we had Atom Smasher and other metas that said Zoom sent me here to kill the Flash, blah blah blah, but we hadn't really yet seen him in action until this episode dropped. So this episode solely served as Zoom's grand entrance and struck fear in the characters and the viewers all at once. This was definitely one of the most memorable episodes, and also a terrific one in a great season. So with that in mind, let's go to the very last episode for this video, the Season 7 Episode 2, The Speed of Thought. Now, in my honest opinion, I believe wholeheartedly this episode was a fluke. Because personally, I am not a fan of the mirror storyline that they have been doing post-Crisis, but I will admit that they did great with this episode. In fact, it was actually so good that I rewatched it again because, well, it was just that enjoyable. Alright, so the good stuff about this episode, the action was great. Barry's intellect being amplified was a great idea, that it actually made Barry look more competent than he had been in a long time. Single-handedly, he outsmarted plenty of other smart individuals in this show, that includes Cisco, and even in one scene, he outsmarted Gideon herself, which is the artificial intelligence that was introduced to us back in Season 1. That was the artificial intelligence that Eobard Thawne was using to see the future. But yeah, so Gideon had many other uses as well in regards to finding solutions, and Barry actually outsmarted her with his enhanced intellect from the artificial Speed Force. The fight scenes were on point, which Team Flash realizes how radical Barry's behavior is becoming, because there was a side effect to this as well. So, on top of increasing his exponentially large in intellect, it also kind of made Barry's behavior become very strange, and also he was becoming harmful as well. So the team realizes this and they decide to take actions into their own hands, and this leads to one of the best moments of the episode, where Killer Frost takes the Velocity Serum to match Barry's speed and power, along with Barry decimating all of Team Flash at the very end of the fight. I was left amazed, especially when you consider that most of the episodes were disappointing prior to this episode. So this was like a shocking comeback, basically. All the other scenes as well, such as Barry pulling Iris out the mirror dimension forcefully, and then original Dr. Wells coming back at the very end of the episode. Now, if you don't recall who I'm talking about, this is the Dr. Wells that was killed by the Reverse Flash in Season 1, Episode 17, The Tricksters, where Thawne assumed his identity at the very end, where we are revealed that Dr. Wells is actually not Dr. Wells, and that Thawne stole his face. So that was the Wells that was brought back, and it was just a cherry on top of an already action-packed episode. Now, unfortunately though, Intelligent Barry only lasted one episode, as he destroys the artificial Speed Force at the end of it, but at least it provided us with a great episode that stands out from all the other mediocre to even bad episodes that preceded it. And so that concludes this video for now. I will release part 2 sometime in the future, but if you agree with my list, or if you feel like I should have added another episode that you enjoyed as well, or if you disagree with any of my points, just feel free to comment that down below as usual, and I am always open to any input. Also, list down some of the other episodes that you want me to list for part 2. So, Raphael out, and I will see you in my next Flash video.